Sound familiar? A client sends over project drawings through email or a messaging app. You download the files, reorganize them into folders, log the project in a spreadsheet, build a cost estimate from scratch, and finally send it back. And suddenly 2 hours have vanished. Any construction professional knows this cycle all too well. You want to spend your time designing. But the reality is that administration eats your day alive. Today, we're going to break that cycle completely. Using n8n with 0 lines of code, we'll walk through a real-world workflow that automates everything from drawing intake all the way through to, quote, delivery. There's no shortage of automation platforms out there, as Zapier, Make, they're both well established. But n8n has specific advantages that make it especially well suited for architecture and construction work. First, your data never leaves your own infrastructure. Client drawings, personal information, and sensitive cost data are processed entirely on your own server, critical for an industry where confidentiality matters. Second, n8n supports self-hosting with no monthly subscription cost. As your project volume grows, your automation costs stay flat. Third, it connects with over 400 applications, email, Google Drive, Slack, PDF generation tools, and much more, covering virtually every tool a modern architecture office relies on. Think of it as building your own private automation infrastructure that you fully control. Before we build anything, let's map out the full automation pipeline you'll have by the end of this video. It runs in 4 stages. Stage 1 is the drawing intake trigger, when a client submits project drawings via email or a web form. n8n detects it automatically. Stage 2 is file classification and storage. The workflow extracts the project name, date, and client details, then organizes everything into the correct Google Drive folder without any manual input. Stage 3 is AI-powered, quote, drafting. The GPT API reads the drawing metadata and area specifications, then populates a structured cost estimate with line items. Stage 4 is, quote, delivery and notification. The finished estimate is converted to PDF and sent directly to the client's inbox, while a Slack message notifies your team that the job is done. The entire sequence runs without a single human touchpoint until review. Let's build the first stage step by step. In n8n, open a new workflow and add a Gmail trigger node. Set the filter condition to activate only when an incoming email contains keywords like drawing, floor plan, or project files in the subject line, and only when an attachment is present. This keeps noise out of your pipeline. Next, connect to Google Drive node. Configure the folder path dynamically using variables extracted from the email, client name, date, and project type. For example, the node might automatically create a folder named 2025-06 Johnson Commercial Office, based entirely on what the client wrote in their email. The key technique here is using n8n's set node to cleanly organize your variables before they reach the AI stage. Passing structured, consistent data into GPT is what separates a reliable pipeline from a brittle one. This is where the workflow gets genuinely powerful. Using n8n's HTTP request node, you call the OpenAI API with a structured prompt. The prompt is designed around consistent variables, space type, total area in square meters, and any special client requirements. You ask GPT to return a line item cost breakdown categories like demolition, flooring, painting, lighting, and fixtures, using standard industry pricing ranges as a reference. Locking in those categories keeps every quote in the same format, which makes client comparison and revision far easier. The return JSON is written automatically into a Google spreadsheet, which then generates the PDF. In real-world testing, a draft estimate for a 100 square meter commercial interior was completed in under 45 seconds. Final review still requires a professional eye, but the time to produce that first draft dropped from over 2 hours down to roughly 5 minutes. Before connecting this workflow to real client projects, there are 3 safeguards you must build in. First, AI-generated cost figures, require human review before they reach clients. Design your n8n workflow to include a mandatory approval gate, a Slack message with an approve button that must be clicked before the quote is sent. Nothing goes out until someone on your team has signed off. Second, client data, drawings, contact details, project specifications is subject to data privacy regulations like GDPR and equivalent frameworks in most countries. Run n8n on your own server, and restrict Google Drive access permissions to the minimum required. Keeping sensitive data within your own infrastructure is not optional. Third, build-in exception handling. When non-drawing attachments arrive, or when an API call fails, your workflow should not crash silently. Configure a dedicated error trigger node that routes failures to a separate notification channel so problems are caught immediately rather than discovered days later. The architecture and construction industry is at an inflection point. Across the world, firms that automate their operational workflows are reclaiming hours every day, hours redirected toward design thinking, client relationships, and creative problem solving. Globally, the adoption of no-code automation tools in professional services is accelerating, and firms that build this capability now will have a meaningful competitive advantage in the years ahead. You don't need to automate everything at once. Start with one workflow today, a simple notification when a new drawing arrives in your inbox. That single step is enough to experience the shift. From there, the pipeline grows naturally. The question is not whether to automate, it's which workflow you'll build first.